So Jane and Blair, I'm going to turn everything over to you guys. You tell me whether you'd like to be, I think you like to have a view of everybody in the room. So you like people to keep their cameras on and you like to basically be able to see them when you're talking to them. For those of you who are new to True, yes, indeed, we do have a producer development and mentorship program, and I'm glad you found out about it. And I'm glad you're here to learn more about it. It's one of the primary programs that we have in True. We're an organization that's been around for 32 years, and we've basically been trying to help producers for all this time, which people find an odd ambition. But I'm a playwright and a composer and a lyricist who learned 32 years ago that producers have a difficult time producing, and they need as much help as the rest of us, as much support, and in some ways more. That's why we do what we do here, and we've developed this producer development and mentorship programs over the years, and we've identified the fact that there are people that are commercial producers. We have people that are not-for-profit producers, and we also know that there's a large community, a large community in New York and everywhere of artists who get tired of waiting for somebody to produce them, and they jump in and they produce themselves. It's called self-producing artists, and we like to call them SPA, because producing yourself is so incredibly relaxing. So that's my intro, and I want you to meet Jane Dubin, who runs the masterclass, and Blair Russell, who runs the foundations class. Have you guys flipped a coin in terms of who goes first?
We had not, but before we start, I would like, hi everybody, I'm Jane.
Hello.
If you don't know me or if you don't know Blair, it would be great if you put your name in the chat and what you do if you're a playwright, especially the folks at the end who didn't get a chance to do this themselves. If you're a playwright, if you're a producer, writer, director, whatever, if you could just throw your name in the chat, that would be helpful. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to go?
I'm foundation. I can lay the
let's
foundation.
Start at lay the foundation.
Start at the very beginning.
Exactly. Hello, everyone. My name is Blair Russell. I am a producer. I sometimes use the term commercial producer. I sometimes use the term creative commercial producer, creative producer. We'll get into these titles when you take the foundation class. But most importantly, I have a background, started with theater when I was very young in middle school and high school, became very interested in stage management. I was a professional stage manager for a few years, and then I got tired of working nights and weekends and thought, am I just going to do this until I retire? That sounds terrible. I should learn to do something else. So tried to do a lot of things and was really interested in continuing to work in theater. And one of the things that happened in my experience working at many different regional theaters and working with different artists was that I was just so excited about a lot of the projects that I was seeing and a lot of the shows that were being written. And I was thinking, oh, why is nobody producing these? They're so good. Somebody should really be producing these. And then you do that thing that you do where you look around and you say, oh, I guess if nobody's doing it, I should do it. So that's the Cliff Notes version of how I became a producer. One of my first major projects, I was a producer on the original Broadway production of Slave Play. I've also worked in the UK, so I have developed work here. I have invested in work here, Gypsy with Imelda Staunton, production of Showboat. I currently have a couple tours going around. Shows that you may know me for include Lizard Boy, which is a show that was off-Broadway last year. It's currently playing at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, but it's also played in the UK. And I am calling you from Edinburgh, Scotland, where I have two shows currently in production, Pop Off Michelangelo and Diva Live from Hell. So yeah, that's me. I have been teaching the foundations now for a time. I don't know how long that time is because I didn't think about it before this second. I think I've done it 3 times at least.
No, you've done it more often than that because you've done it. You've done probably 3 years, and you've done a couple of semesters, so it's more than 3.
Yeah, could be. Maybe it's 4. Maybe it's 4. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy teaching the foundations course because one, it allows me to sort of tap into the things that I love about producing, but also talk about it, which often when you're doing it, you don't think a lot about why you like it. You often think a lot about why you don't like it and why would you do this? And this was a terrible idea. And when I talk about it to other people, I'm actually reminded of the joy and satisfaction and why I got into it in the first place. The foundations course is, it's in the title. It is meant to establish a foundation. Oh, yes.
But what I was going to say was, how about I
Are
introduce
you going
myself,
to go?
then we talk
You can
about
go.
this stuff.
Okay.
I'm Jane Dubin. I'm a playwright. Blair and I have known each other for a while. We're actually working together on a project now, bringing a new play, transferring a new play that was off-Broadway in.
Just to clarify, you're a producer. You said you were a
Oh,
playwright.
oh, I'm a producer. Sorry. I thought that was implied by the fact that I was teaching a producing class. I am a producer. I've done co-produced 9 Broadway shows, a few off-Broadway shows, a couple London, couple touring. My very first Broadway show was the Norman Conquests, and my more recent shows have included American in Paris, Peter and the Starcatcher, Is This a Room, Dana H. I'm looking at my wall so I can remind myself of other shows, Farinelli and the King, and others. I am also the board chair of a nonprofit theater called Houses on the Moon. So I have different perspectives and have worked in very small off Broadway, which is where Houses mostly lives, as well as Broadway. I believe that there are many different paths and many different ways of defining success. And having a show on Broadway is not the be all and end all. There are many, many, many ways of being successful as a playwright, as a producer. And I also believe very strongly that whether you're a playwright or a producer, having a foundational, I'm cueing you here, Blair, having a foundational knowledge of how the process works is critical. It's obviously, as a producer, you have to know how the process works, but as a playwright, I think it is really important that you understand what you're going to go through. If you're self-producing, obviously you need to know it, but even if you're being produced by someone, the more knowledge you have of the process, the more attractive you are to potential producers, the more you can be impactful in the process and support the process. So to that end, if you're starting out, if you've never been produced, if you've never produced yourself, Foundations and Blair is the place for you.
Right. Yes, as Jane said, the Foundations course is meant to be an introduction to producing for folks who maybe are interested in producing and have never produced before. There's a very, very informative for artists who are interested in self-producing, or like Jane said, for people who just want to know more about it. You are a better collaborator, you're more knowledgeable, you'll be able to walk into a room or a negotiation or a conversation, understanding the key terms and key information. It really does help. And I think as a producer myself, and I'm sure Jane can attest to this and other producers in the room, it can be a little scary to get into that relationship with artists or with other producers or people who are interested, and kind of knowing that they have some kind of information and background into the crazy things that we do is really helpful. It just is. It just makes a difference. It makes it easier to say yes. It makes it easier to invite people in. So that knowledge is key. And so in the Foundations course, over a series of classes, we will kind of learn about a few different topics. I try to organize the topics in a way that sort of, again, using our favorite word, lays the foundation for information that will build on top of each other. So obviously we will start with an introduction that just kind of goes over the basics of the course and getting to know each other. That will be key later on. We'll move into talking about setting our goals once it's one of the most important parts of being a producer is understanding what your goals are. If you're somebody who has a project and you're trying to figure out what's next, you need to be able to set your goals. So we talk about setting goals, SMART goals, all of those key elements. We will go over a variety of topics that are key for a producer to know, including talking about general managers, talking about budgets, putting together creative teams and your sort of whole team behind a show. One of my favorites is marketing, advertising, and publicity. And we will talk about all of the legal elements, the contracts, and finally, we'll talk about raising money, which, although it feels like the most important part of producing it, and it is a really important part of producing, you kind of have to do all the other things before you even, start to say, okay, I'm going to raise any money. So though each of the classes will be dedicated to one of those topics. I love a slideshow, a fun slideshow presentation. There will be information and hopefully takeaways for each of those. So let's say we talk about certain contracts. I'll want to have examples of those contracts, marketing, advertising, and publicity examples, sample budgets that you can look at for projects at different levels, just all the information that you would need to sort of walk away from the course and say, okay, I think I kind of get what a producer does. Now I am gonna learn more, either go with Jane and take masterclass and start applying it to my project, or maybe take that out into the world and start, putting it to use with the projects that you're already doing. One of the big parts of the class, which is both makes everybody groan when they hear it, but actually ends up being super important, is within the class, we will break the entire group up into smaller groups to do a final project. And with that project, it will effectively put you in the driver's seat as a producer. So we will have guest producers come in who have a project that they are either interested in or one that they are already looking towards, and they will gift that project to you and put you in the role of producer, and you, using all of the things that you have learned throughout the semester, will put together a pitch that you will then present to the class and those guest producers. And that pitch should include, again, all the information that you know. So like, who's on your team? Who are you casting? How are you marketing this? What's the budget for this project? You get to create all of those things from scratch. While there might be information that exists about this project, it's really about how would you do it if you were the producer. Now, Jane will talk a little bit about how projects work in her class, but in this one, I'm bringing people together in groups so that the workload is a little bit less, because obviously putting together a whole budget and a team and a marketing plan and all of that, and how you're going to raise money and what venue you're going to go into, all of that would be a lot for one person to do and present without the experience. But as a team, it's a lot easier, and all we do is work as a team. So if you can't work as a team, you should just leave the industry now. You have to be on a team. Unless you're doing a solo shit, well, no, because then you need a place to do it. So you definitely have to work with other people. And then at the end of that, so that we'll present those final projects, the guest producers, who tend to be Broadway producers, people, Jane has been a guest before. A lot of my friends have done me a favor many, many times. Will come in and you'll be able to connect to them, and they'll give you feedback on what they thought about your presentation, and you can sort of talk and compare it to the things that they're doing. And then they're often open to conversations about the work that you're doing as well. I can't volunteer them, but if they're generous enough to come and join me in class, they tend to be generous enough to come and talk to you as well. I love a conversation. I think that Foundations is about questions and conversations. There people will be coming in with various levels of experience, even though it is Foundations. So I will try my best to answer all questions. And like Jane, I sit on the board of 3 nonprofits. So I have nonprofit experience, particularly in developmental theaters and doing new work. I've done plays, I've done musicals, I've done immersive work. I've kind of done a range. So with each topic, I will try to talk about it from all of those key different perspectives, so that if you're coming in just as a producer or you're coming in as an artist, you'll be able to take in and understand everything that we're discussing. Yeah.
There's a question from Nick Hafner. Are you pitching other producers? I'm not sure how that fits into what we're saying. Nick, what do you mean? Unless you're.
I mean, you said you're doing the pitch. So I mean, that was one of the presentations you're doing. So I'm just, you're pitching. So you're pitching to raise money, or pitching other producers, or I was just trying to understand what your pitch was.
Yeah. So the pitch kind of runs the gamut of ways you may have to pitch a project. I am not always pitching somebody to raise money, although that is part of it. Sometimes I'm pitching a venue to want to do the show. Sometimes I'm pitching a actor to want to be in the show. So we will, you normally don't get 15 minutes, and actually these presentations will be about that for everybody. You normally have a minute if you're lucky. But this pitch will allow you to talk about to any and all of those people. So whether you need to raise money from investors, talk to get another producer on board, getting a venue, pitching your project to a producer. And if you are an artist who has a project, well, being able to talk producer's language is a key element of that. And one of the reasons why at this phase I don't have people do their individual projects is, again, because it's a little bit too much. So it's easier to focus on somebody else's project. Nobody has to take it personally. And then it doesn't feel like anybody's, particularly being prioritized. And again, in masterclass with Jane, it'll be very different, but that she'll talk a little bit more about that. Yes, Bob.
Yeah, when people as a team sit down to create their pitch, don't they decide who they're pitching to? I mean,
yes, as a team, you can decide who you're pitching to. You can kind of decide the angle for your pitch and who you'd like to aim it at. But it's up to you to talk about how you present that, and as a group come up with exactly who you want to pitch it to. Obviously, you're going to be in the class with the other people in the course, myself and the guest producer. So we will be the audience, but we're not necessarily the people you're pitching it to. You could just sort of fictionalize that part of it.
That also depends on what stage the project is in too. So that helps.
Actually, it's also an acting lesson. I've actually been there with some of the pitches, and I've been convinced that what they're doing is absolutely what's happening. And it's like, oh no, they made it all up. It's like, really?
Yeah.
They aspired to it, Bob. It's not made up. It's what they aspire to.
I know, but
I was going to say making it all up is the only thing we do. But
that's right. Yeah.
Also,
my jaw sometimes drops. It's like, my God, wow.
Yeah. What Blair said about the content of the class, I don't need to repeat a lot. The content is the same. The process of producing has all those elements, whether you're at the beginning stages or the advanced stages, whether you're off-Broadway, in your garage or on Broadway. So in the master class, you go through the legal and the marketing and the raising money and all the development of all those kinds of things as well. The difference between foundations and master class has more to do whether you are actively working on a specific project that you're leading. And what that means is you're leading as a producer or you're leading as a self-producing artist. We don't make a distinction in that way. So prerequisite to be in the masterclass is having your project, having some level of experience in producing. So if you're first timer, foundations is probably where you want to be, and you get the basics of it before you head into masterclass. The difference in the actual classes has to do with your direct participation. Yes, there's always opportunity for questions, but people in the masterclass are responsible for 3 different presentations. There's a final presentation, which is similar. You're singly giving your pitch for your project, and similarly, I invite different producers, general managers into the room who will give you feedback on your project. The second presentation is what I call a partner project. So I will pair you up with one other person in the class, and you will give a presentation on that other person's project, and they will present your project. The rationale behind this is we often get stuck in our head how we perceive our projects. I think it's especially something that happens to writers, is that they know so much about their project, they know so much about their characters, they know so much about the 87th draft and the 3rd draft that like having an outside perspective, especially someone who has experience in, hey, here's a project, do I like it? What are the best parts of it? So you get to see someone else pitch your project. And I think there's some people on here who've been in the class who will say, wow, I had an epiphany listening to my partner talk about my project. Similarly, you get to look at someone else's project and be objective, which is basically what a producer does. It's like, oh, here's a project. I'm going to read this script. I'm going to think about where it might live, who might be interested in it, and I'm going to present this to try to get other people interested. And it's I think, I don't want to speak for the people here who are in the room, but I think if they were to be asked what was the most impactful thing in the class, that would be it. Because it's really, it's a real life exercise in what it means to be a producer. Plus you get also to learn how someone else views your project in a way that you might not necessarily think of it yourself. The third presentation is a 5-minute, supposed to be a 5-minute, it seems to never be a 5-minute, hot topic. It's sort of like a mini version of a TED Talk where, there's so much going on in theater always. We only have 9 classes in masterclass. We can't cover everything. And all of you out there have an expertise in something or a real strong interest in something that may not get covered in the class, or maybe it's covered, but just not in that level of detail. So I asked you to go, pick a topic and say, I just want to raise this for, here's some information that I know about. And then it sort of starts a little conversation that we have about that current, past, present, future type of thing. In the past, people have talked about podcasts, they've talked about VR, they've talked about technology, they've talked about blind casting, all kinds of stuff. And I'm sure you all have different kinds of things. Thank you, Lise, for confirming what I said in the chat. Love the experience of pitching my partner's project and hearing her pitch mine.
But also, I want to just say that Lise, who's going to be our guest next week with the people that she's working with, the whole thing started as a hot topic presentation in
That's right.
Jane's class.
That's right. One of the more fascinating ones, I might add. And so, basically, I would say the difference between foundations and masterclass is not necessarily in the information that you will take away from the class, but in your level of experience, your comfort level in your level of experience. And masterclass is smaller, it's limited to 10 people. And there will generally be people with more experience as a group than in foundations. Similar opportunity to ask questions. I also have, as part of masterclass, we do a private 1-hour psychiatrist 1-hour, 50-minute session to specifically talk about some things, anything that you want to talk about, while we entertain questions about your project. Sometimes something is so specific it's not really appropriate for class. We try to discuss things that will help everybody, and the private time is where you can talk, get into some detail that you may not want to share with the group. As my final note here, I think that one of the most important things for me in class, and I've always been thrilled by what has actually happened, is the community that forms from the class. And several people have gone on to partner on projects. And I think that the community forms, and you have this cohort where you can ask questions of each other. I like to listen to class. I continue to teach. I've taught longer than Blair in this. I don't know how many times I've taught this class. I taught it when we were in person with partners. And now, by the way, in case anyone didn't realize, all of this is virtual. But the community of students that are in the class that I continue to work with, the community of students that work with each other, that work on projects together, that have produced each other's work, is the thing that I most want people to take away from that. Thank you, Randall, for supporting that. Randall was a two-time student, and we still talk. We're still friends. So that's my initial spiel. And would, you know, people have questions, this would be a great time to start asking them or throw them in the chat.
Actually, if you raise your hand, we can call on you. If you want to raise your hand visually, or if you want to do it. Okay, Jessica's found her virtual hand.
So I took the foundations class 3-4 years ago, one of the first virtual ones, long time ago. It's been on my radar to take the advanced class. I was thinking I was going to do it this fall, but I'm working on a project that I did not write. I am the director, but then I was thinking maybe that's the project I would focus on. So what do you think, Jane, is a project that I'm not the writer on, that I'm a director of? Is that a project that would be worth bringing to you?
We can talk about that. I mean, if you're, you know, if you can speak about the project, if you can talk about what you want to do with it and present it, you know, I know you a little bit, so I know you have a skill set. So I lost where you went. I was
Wait, I'll put my hand back
oh,
up.
there
So
you
I go
are.
back to the top.
Right, there you are.
Now, here I am.
Yeah. You know, typically we like the person who is driving the process. You know, sometimes directors drive the process along if there isn't currently a producer. So sure, I mean, we can certainly talk about that.
Thank you.
Jesse?
Hi, sorry, my raise hand feature isn't working, but good to see you, Jane. We've met a couple times, but a while back.
Yep,
so
I remember.
So good to see you. So I'm curious, when I did PDMP, there weren't two, it was a long time ago, so there's only one class to take. So I'm curious with the master class, if we're doing a presentation, I'm wondering if it's possible to do a presentation on a company or on a concept.
Sure.
I'm pitching to potential board members all the time. And that is, it's sort of more advantageous than a particular project, probably.
Sure.
So I'm curious if that's, if that's an option.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to present Ripple Effects, you know, as that's your company, that's your mission and your project. Sure. Yeah. We actually have done that a couple of times, and we had one team that came from Foundations. They were starting up a new nonprofit, so that was their project. And you know, I think
actually, Jane, they met in your class, and they decided to form a partnership. Mara and Ryan.
No, I think they met in Foundations.
Oh, they met in Foundations. Okay.
Foundations, and I think they won, you know, the pitching or something, and got a partial scholarship to the master class. But I think, you know, I think given my background in the nonprofit world, that I've been on, you know, I'm currently on the Houses on the Moon board. I'm on advisory board of 2 other theater companies. I've been on the boards of theater companies and dance companies in the past. So I think I could be helpful in that way. And I certainly think that the other people in the class can be helpful in the sense of that we've all seen shows from nonprofit theaters. We all have some idea of, you know, it's almost like you could be pitching to the other people in the class as potential board members as well. So I think that could, you know, that would work.
I mean, yeah, and I am, you know, we're always looking at how the most effective partnerships with commercial producers. So you know, and it's a conversation that always starts and kind of fizzles out. So I'm curious about exploring that too.
Can I poll the room, Jane and Blair, with a raise of hand? I want to find out who are self-producing artists, who work in not-for-profit, and basically who are commercial producers or self-producing artists who want to produce other people's work. So let's start with, are you primarily a self-producing artist? Raise your hand.
Mm.
So
Can't find my.
they look like there are a few of you. Let me ask you, of those of you who are self-producing artists, have you ever considered producing someone else's work? Raise your hand. I should probably have set up a poll. Interesting. Okay, good. And how many of you consider yourselves commercial producers, or not necessarily commercial producers, but producers who are exclusively interested in getting unheard voices on stage? Okay. So we got a range. I don't know how helpful that is for you, Blair and Jane, but I always am interested in that.
Barbara, you just raised your, what are you raising your hand to? Because I don't think I got to hear you introduce yourself. Are you
I'm a playwright and I produce my own work, but I'm interested in producing other people's work too. So I've been thinking about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say something. That's not from Blair and Jane, but this is just because I've been watching this process for 30 years. Some of you talk about being reluctant producers, self-producing artists who absolutely cannot stand producing. Some of you would be surprised to learn that self-producing artists who have gone through the program and learned the process and learned an actual system of what you need to do have come away with it and have started producing other people. And once you find out how to do it and you find out that you can do it, and many of you will find out you can do it and that you enjoy doing it, much to your surprise, then you suddenly become a producer who still writes.
I'll say I've given up the writing and I just produce other people's work now. Produce and direct pretty much other people's work.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going over. Fred changed his mind, so he's not.
I don't think Lil knew that she was unmuted.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation, everybody. Let us ask whatever teeny tiny question you want to ask, or a major question you want to ask. Just give Blair and Jane an opportunity to meet you. Paula Burkett.
Hello. Just real question. If I want to take the piece that I wrote, and I'm trying to write more pieces, but I'd like to take it to sort of non-theater spaces where I think the work would have the greatest impact. And so does the foundations course cover reaching sort of non-theater, but like people who would be interested in the subject kind of pitches?
Are you talking about like universities?
Like universities or sororities or Chamber of Commerce, or people who would be interested in the subject of the work, but they're not necessarily theater people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why we may talk about that in first of all, in regards to like marketing. We talk about community outreach and community building and ways that people can be involved. There's a lot of creative fundraising ideas now. We will get into fiscal sponsorship and going to other nonprofits and finding other programs that might want to be connected. On the university side, that's really I typically talk about that when we talk about development and sort of pathways for shows, but it probably depends on what the ask is of them, but we will talk about pitching to other groups and having conversations with other groups and sort of coalition building and foundations.
And Paula, this fits into a broader picture for most people, which you may not be thinking about right now. Getting your work to universities can be part of a developmental path. You may think that's your goal right now, but as you start working on it and as you start having success moving forward with the piece, you may see that this is a stepping stone towards actually getting a production.
Yeah, if I could chime in as well. I think basically what we're talking about in both classes is how can you effectively tell stories, and what is the format, who's the audience, what's the venue, what's the process, what do you have to have in place legally, morally, structurally to put something on a stage, and that's a stage in quotes. Stage isn't literally a theater. It can be a backyard, a church, a school, a university. Talk to any nonprofit theater these days, and the struggles of where to produce things or how to produce them. And certainly during the pandemic, we had all different kinds of ways to get our stories out there. And so when I think about theater, I don't think, even though my next project will be on a stage, I'm also working on a project that's started out on a stage, went to audio, will probably go back to stage, but exploring different ways to develop shows that aren't necessarily traditional ways. So any of these things, learning how to talk about your work has applications across the board, and learning how your work gets developed has applications across the board.
Very helpful. Thank you.
I'm not sure which order this goes. Barbara, Allen, Rosie, or Rosie, Allen, Barbara. Do you know who raised
I
their
think it
hand
was
first?
Rosie, Allen, Barbara was the way that I saw it.
Okay. Rosie.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm interested in taking foundations class, regardless of the answer to this next question, but I guess I'm curious, for the master class, I am interested essentially in producing a revival of a musical that I'd also like to direct. And I know most people here seem to be talking about work that they're writing or that someone else that's a new work. So I guess I'm wondering, does that feel like something that would be an applicable project for that class as well?
Sure. I mean, it doesn't, when I actually years ago was in the mentorship program, and I had a partner. We were working on a specific play, and we were set up to meet with a producer. And between the time we had a long lead time, she was very busy. Between the time that we set up the appointment and the actual appointment, the project fell through. And so the first thing we said was, "Hey, listen, really sorry, but this isn't the project we're working on." And she said, "I don't care." And we were like, "What?" She goes, "I don't really care what your project is. What I care about is how you learn about and behave as producers. So whether your project is a 10-minute piece, a new theater company, a revival of a work, there's still a process and a structure that you go through to produce the work. So producing a revival, you cut through some of the, you don't have to do certain things. So yeah, but it's still a project."
Jane, go ahead. Tell her who your mentor was.
Oh, Kristen Kasky.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. She's
Casual.
Yeah. She's a big deal. Yeah. Bigger deal even now than she was.
Oh my God,
Alan,
yes.
Yeah, I hope that helps. Yeah. Alan is next.
Hi. Oh, thanks. I'm just curious. I have a lot of fires going, but the most recent one is a theater company approached me about doing an adaptation of a novel, probably on site, but we're not sure yet. And I want to make it as real and physical as possible for them to do it. And also, if it doesn't happen with this theater, to be able to bring it to the other theaters. And I have a fair amount of experience in the nonprofit world and being on boards. And I'm not sure which class would possibly be the most appropriate to beef up that presentation to this theater company. If you have any input or thoughts on that.
Sure. And I would say this to the room here. We've both been doing this a while. I've been teaching masterclass. Like I said, I don't know. I've taught it with partners. I taught it pre-pandemic. I've been teaching it online. I ask you to trust us that we will put you in the right place. If you feel like you want to, that you might possibly be interested in masterclass, to ask for the masterclass. There's a foundations application and there's an add-on for the masterclass.
Okay.
So ask for the masterclass application. Put your email in the chat. Bob can send it to you, or I can send, and then what the process that I go through in putting the class together is I take all the applications. There has been enough demand that sometimes they're just, it's a matter of maybe you would benefit from foundations and take masterclass in the spring, because there's generally more applicants than slots. We go through the process, read your application. I will interview, I will have met with everyone before class unless I already know you, so that we get a chance to really understand each other, make sure we're on the same page, and then make the selection. So if you think you want to be in masterclass, apply for masterclass.
Okay,
If we say this time, start here and come in the spring, it has nothing to do with anything other than space, or just we're trying to make the best decisions for you, knowing what our class is.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Barbara Cassidy.
Yes. Hey, so I think you just answered my question because it was about if you weren't sure where to apply, where should you apply? So thank you for that. I guess my other question is just kind of basic. As when do these classes take place?
Sure.
Yeah.
Typically classes have started mid to late September, Tuesday nights, 6:30 to 8:30 via Zoom, and it will run, I want to say 10 weeks. So normally
It's
through
10.
December or January, it kind of depends on where holidays fall and working around that. But yeah, that's.
Mine is different. I start the 21st of October, I think, and it runs 9 classes, and it runs on Monday nights. It's in the evenings from, we typically start at 5:30 for, that's the time of hot topics, conversation, catching up, and then we start with the regularly scheduled programming at 6 to 8. I made all the dates somewhere and I don't know what I did with them, but it's basically every other week with 1 or 2 exceptions, because I don't think anybody likes to meet like during Christmas and stuff, and because Mondays are day of holidays, but it averages every other week, and then the 9th class is your presentations. I sometimes do a class after that for anyone who's interested to just do like a wind down and stuff. So it kind of winds up being 10 classes anyway, but that's depends on the situation.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks for asking that, because that's important. And by the way, I think it's still true, Bob, that the masterclass folks can audit the foundations class.
Yeah, we give that to you as an option if you want to go and check on Blair's classes as well. If you're in the master class, you can do that. It doesn't work the other way, but and it also will depend on Blair. There may be certain circumstances in which he thinks that the class may need to be closed, but that's very rare. So yeah, you can go to Blair's. You can audit Blair's class.
Yeah, you're not part of the group project unless you if you want to take the class, pay for the class, you could be part of the project. But I think it's most useful if you, in the very, very rare time that someone has missed a class, to be able to go to the same subject matter in foundations. I've also had people say to me, oh, I've taken a class or I've produced before, why do I need to do this again? What I will say to you is that every time I've ever heard someone talk about marketing, I learned something. Every time I've talked to a lawyer, I've learned something. Things change all the time. I continue to teach the class because I learn from our guests. I invite people who I think are interesting. I get to ask them all kinds of questions. And I also learn from you guys who are out there doing all these different things and different things that I'm doing. And so we learn from each other. So whether you've done this before 100 times or never done it before, there's just so many different opportunities to learn. So.
And just so you know, John Ewing John Ewing has taken both classes
100 times.
Twice. So John, tell us why. Why?
Because I love Blair and Jane so much, and I love the people. But I really enjoy not only learning from them, but learning from the other students as well. I've found that the way other people put their projects together and questions that they may ask may be things that I've never thought of before. And I've been in the true bosom for about 2 years now, and you guys just can't get rid of me.
Is that what I'm
because
feeling?
Everybody loves me so much.
Yeah, anyone who wants to get a good chuckle, you can go read John's comment in the chat. And I think I don't want to speak for Blair, but I will say John's one of my favorite students that's taken the course multiple times and asks a lot of questions and comes from a different industry. And we email on a semi-regular basis. One of my faves.
So just to say that there are people who do take both classes simultaneously. It can and does happen. I think Sarah's next, and then Nancy, and then Allie. Sarah.
Hi, thank you. I just have a generic question. That would be for everyone, I think, and then a specific one to my situation. The generic one is, what is an approximate sense of the extracurricular course load? Because it sounds like we're working with each other and alone outside of the sessions. And the second question, in my case, I actually am only here because I have an investor who approached me and with a considerable amount of money and also the ability to raise more. And I've already kind of done a lot of research for her, and I'm already like, oh, I don't want to do all the heavy lifting. So I'd like to wait till she's available to take the course with me so we both can learn before we do this journey. And that would be next semester. So I see there's a spring one. And my question about that would be, would we act as individuals in the group, even when the part where we pitch the project that we're doing together, or would we be partners, or how would, I mean, we'd each pay obviously, but how would we work if we're there representing, she's the investor, I'm the playwright, and then we're both going to learn how to do this thing?
I think it depends on which class you're in.
That would be another question. What would you recommend?
I'm sorry, I totally spaced on the first question. I
Yeah,
was
me
asking
too.
the second
What's the extracurricular course load?
Oh, the workload.
Oh,
the
right,
workload.
yes.
I'm sorry, I got so
Foundation-
focused on the second question.
That's okay.
You said
I have no
investor, and my
excuse.
mind went
I'm just
blank.
tired.
Yeah.
In
Yeah, mine too.
Foundation, the extracurricular is, but people here have done it. I think it depends on the group. It's not like you have homework every class. Groups decide how they do their projects. They may say, okay, we're going to put together a slideshow. All of these 2 slides will come back. They may meet once, they may meet 5 times if they so choose, but that all happens between the 4th to last class and the last class. So there's not a lot of work outside of that. You show up, we chat, take notes, and then just the meeting with your group to finalize your presentations and maybe rehearse it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I would say for foundations, for masterclass, it's a little bit different because there are these 3 presentations. There's much more, but it's also you. So there's a difference between organizing a group and working with a group and working by yourself. So when you're working by yourself, if you're a night owl, you do it at midnight. If you're a morning person, you do it in the morning, and you control the time you put in. I will direct you to Randall Huskinson's comment in the chat. He's a masterclass student, and I will say that I expect people to do a fair amount. It takes some time to put the presentation together, unless you're really good at it, and if you already know your project, it's not going to take you a lot of time to put it together. As far as homework, I will sometimes send out information ahead of a class and ask that you read it. if you don't read it, you don't read. I mean, this is in college. There's no credit. There's nothing. If you don't get a chance to read it, you don't, and then you just have you read it later or you don't. I mean, I can't. We don't have a ruler. We're not going around slapping people on the knuckles here. But I say the more that if you're serious, the more you put in, the more you get out. As far as who is in what class, I had this situation come up once before, and someone took the foundations class and someone took the master class who had, it depends on the level of experience. If you're both in a position of having experience and would individually be eligible to be in the master class, you could come in as a team. If one of you is more experienced than the other, then I would say, one should be in foundations, one should be in master class. And then you get the two different perspectives.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Nancy.
Thank you. First, sorry I'm late. I was getting out of a work commitment, but I want to thank you very much. I'm Nancy Redman, an actor, playwright, comedian, actor, playwright. I have, I can't do the Tuesday because of a different Zoom commitment. Monday, I most likely could do, and it seems like Monday is, Jane, your masterclass, is that what it is? And
Correct.
Monday, and the masterclass, if I'm researching other producers for my solo show that I recently did with 36 performances. It was produced, but I'm looking to do it in a different theater. So is that something you deal with? Also, the other question is presentations. Are you talking about pitches or new work? I wasn't sure and I'm sorry if you covered it. If you covered it already and you want to direct me where to read about your masterclass, I will do that.
Yeah, I put it in the chat. I put it in the chat before. That has a page of all the descriptions of the two different classes. But the presentations that I'm talking about for my class are related to actual class. Wait, where'd you go? I was looking at you. Now you're gone. Oh, there you are. Okay. Every time someone leaves, it moves around. I see you.
Put my hand up.
Yeah. When the final presentation is you presenting your project to the class and to guests.
What is the project? I mean, I have 5 solo plays working on
whichever you're gonna apply to the class with a specific project that you want to talk about, right? And you're going to use that project to and it could be, you could start with one, you could go to another, but in the final pitch, you're going to present a specific project, a plan, all that kind of thing. In the partner presentations, you have to have a specific project that your partner can present on your behalf, and you are going to present their project. So you're going to act as producer for their project, they're going to act as producer for your project and present it to the class. The hot topic is whatever you want to talk about. And as far as solo shows go, I have been a producer on a number of solo shows. So again, it's storytelling, whether it's a solo show, a 50-person play, a 70-person musical, a 4-person. That's not the important part of it. It's that you have a story you want to tell. How do you tell it? In what venue, with what partners, with if does that answer your question?
Can I jump in?
Sure.
Because I think this may be relevant. I'm not sure. When you take the foundations or the master class, you're coming in at least pretending that you're producer, that you're producing. The point of this is for you to learn all the aspects of producing. So you have to view your project as not as you as a solo performer, but as a solo performer who's producing some sort of version of your show, because it's what we're talking about is producing here, right, Jane? Am I on old information?
We're not gonna talk about how the dramaturgy or the construction of your play.
No, I understand.
Except how it might be relevant to producibility.
So whether it's Oh, forgive me, whether it's self-producing or learning how to work with a producer or get
Oh,
a.
that's a bingo. That's exactly right. What
That's
Jane said
exactly,
earlier.
Yeah,
And whether I want to do the story of a solo play that's already been produced or work on a new one with you.
that's
Either
your,
way,
right,
that's
that's
my
your
idea.
choice. Right.
Okay.
And like I said, I mean, I'm saying this not to be dismissive. I don't care what your project is.
No, I understand.
Yeah, I
Oh.
care about how you're approaching the project, how we craft the path for the project, how you deal with the legal issues, the marketing issues, the development issues, you know, all those kinds of things. And it is not unusual. I mean, it's not typical, but there have been students who have come in with one project who midstream decide, you know what, that's not what I want to do. I want to do something else. And their final presentation winds up being something different. So it's not the project so much that I'm interested in. It's you and how you approach it, especially if you have multiple plays. You just pick one to take it through the path, but it should be the skills that you pick up should then allow you to apply that to other projects, whether they're yours or someone else's.
And you explain what the qualifications are in your application. What qualifications?
I mean, I would suggest you get the application and look at it so you'll see what the questions are. But basically what I'm looking for in masterclass is, one, that you have a project, that you're actively, you know, this is people who are seriously interested, right? It's the seminar version of the class. And whether you have experience, whether you know, when we throw out certain terms that you understand them, and you know, there's lots of stuff that we don't all understand, and that's easy. Whether you're interested in asking questions and participating and being part of a community, that's what I'm looking for.
Thank you. Is there a limit to the amount of people that you do take?
I take 10 people.
Oh, I think
max.
Thank you for your kindness.
Yeah, the foundations class is larger, and like I said before, if it may be the case that we look, you know, when we look at the body of applicants, there may be too many, and it's just like, okay, which person do we think would best benefit from going through and getting a more foundational experience? And that's the thing. So, you know, some people self-identify that way and say, you know what, I think I'd start with foundations. So and sometimes it's a matter of, you know, in the fall, I'm busy. I don't think I can spend that extra time on the presentations. I'd rather do it in the spring. And some people say, oh, the fall, I'm open. I really want to take, you know, and sometimes it's just a gut reaction to people, and how I also try to have a balanced class. So I'd like to have a mix of playwright focused and producer focused people, and, you know, all the different elements, so that it's a little bit more balanced. So
thank you for the clarity, and I appreciate
no,
it very much.
No problem.
We're going to go to
Ali. Ali's hand is tired.
No, I just want to respond. I want to respond to something in the chat. Nick Hafner, I want to acknowledge you for actually knowing who Donald Farber is. And I also want to say that his books are very good for some basic knowledge, but not everything is current in his books. He used to be a very dear friend, and he hasn't written a book in 20 years. So I think that Blair and Jane would probably recommend other books, but certainly From Option to Opening is just one of the basic Bibles of theater.
Yeah,
so
I always recommend. Facetious there.
I was going to say I was being a little facetious there, but yes, there will be actually useful information in there, and also almost all of it will be slightly twisted, because when it was written to now, we do things very differently. Like, we use the internet, you know, so.
And add a couple of zeros to the end of any number. I always, just generally, if you have a question about something, I always start by just Googling, what is this? And find a lot of stuff there.
Okay, Ali, we're up to you now.
Yay. Hi, guys. Seeing as Blair, you're in Scotland, and Jane, I believe you're doing a transfer of Dana H in London. sometime soon? No,
No,
maybe? No?
I'm not involved in that production,
Oh.
but I'm in New York.
Well, I'm wondering if there's some type of focus on marketing for or hitting other markets like overseas, Australia, the West End, and producing for those markets as well as just New York.
Oh, Blair knows nothing about that.
Yeah, I absolutely talk about that as far as our developmental pathways. We compare the US, New York, Broadway, regional scene here, regional scene there, festivals, globally, other English speaking markets, international markets, translating your work. Yeah, that's a big part of it, especially these days where we're trying to find more opportunities. The competition is high and the prices keep going up for doing things in New York.
Yeah. I will confess, Allie, that I am less knowledgeable than Blair because I have had productions that American in Paris was produced in London. I worked on an original show of Umbrellas of Cherbourg in London that we had hoped to transfer, which did not transfer to New York. I rely on guests for that. And typically in my syllabus, the last class becomes sort of student's choice. If they don't have a choice, then I pick, but sometimes people are more interested in touring. But it's also sometimes, like I had a student who was calling in from London. If she was presenting, she always got to go first because it was later there. But you know, that enabled us to have, like, to make that just part of the conversation. A lot of times students have had experience in other markets, and so it becomes part of the conversation. So it's as Blair said, it's and as I said at the beginning, Broadway is not my focus. It's one of the options. And so, you know, the regional markets, the touring markets, I try to have guests who are artistic directors of theater companies, you know, people who have worked in Australia or London, and compare and contrast. And the Friday night, this call has often featured Australian and British producers. So that's not necessarily homework, but it's something I encourage people in the class to attend these sessions because they're almost like an extended version of a hot topic. So
cool. Thank you, guys.
Sure.
I just want to say to Rosie, yes, we already have your application. If you're talking about masterclass, everybody, the way you get the masterclass application, because Jane only accepts 10 people, I don't put it online. You have to contact me, just email me and say, can I have the masterclass application? And I will send it to you. So that will be in addition to you have the basic application already in. You and Alicia do.
Does it, I assume everybody has your email, but you might want to just put
my
it in the chat.
my email. I'll put it in. Let's see.
Hi, Joanne.
Hello. Hi, Jane. Hi, Russell. Hello, everyone. Bob. I have a question regarding, it's just in either of the classes, the foundation or master class, do you review contracts and production investment, how that's broken down? I do have background. I did a raise on, I was co-producer with credits for doing a raise off-Broadway at the Darrell Roth Theater. So I have some experience, but I was just wondering if you delve into anywhere on the provision of how those terms, the terms for investments work, and touch on contracts at all. I'll let you answer. So basically that
Well,
I write grant writer.
Both classes have an attorney and a legal module.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, we do an entire day dedicated to legal where I make one of my lawyers come and talk to you all while I watch.
Okay.
And they do it for free, which is like,
that's very nice.
And then
that's a $750
yeah.
hour. Yeah.
And then we also do a class on raising money specifically, and we talk about the contracts and the things that you need for that, as well as the kickbacks and those things that I always have to look up before I teach a class. I forget how to describe it. And so yes, in foundations that will absolutely be covered, and I'm sure Jane talks about it just as much.
Yeah, and just for also similar, we do the legal class. We also have a general manager. General managers come in, and that's often a part of like how do you set your producer entitlements and all those kinds of things. Money raising and pitching. It's all it's kind of all blended, even though each class has a focus. There's a blend, and also because in masterclass you get that extra hour with me. If you have specific questions that aren't covered, that's your opportunity to ask them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good
Been a
to
while.
see you. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, well, I don't see any other hands raised. I want to meet a couple people that we didn't meet before. Jane and Blair, did you meet Kip Koenig? Because he's new to us. So Kip, why don't you say hello to them?
Hi there. I'm down near Asbury Park, New Jersey. I was thinking about raising my hand. So I'll just.
Why did I know that?
Give it a shot. Kind of stumbled into this knowledge about it. A friend said you might want to check out True. I'm self-producing a play that I wrote, and it wasn't something that I thought I would do. Self-producing. I was sending it around, and then I gave it to a few people, three different people that have invested in theater before, and don't you know, all three of them said, "Yeah, I'll help support this," and I didn't know what to do with that. And so maybe it was beginner's luck. I don't know. I worked really hard to make the play good, but I mean that goes without saying. And so part of what I'm up against is obviously I need what's taught in foundations. That just seems so clear. And more than anything, I feel so appreciative of the fact that True exists. Somehow I didn't really know it was here until now, even though I've kind of been around theater for a long time. So thank you for doing this. It seems incredibly valuable, and I'll just greedily gobble it up as it goes. But what I'm trying to decide is, am I aiming? I don't mean to sound immodest. I know I'm kind of starting at the beginning, but should I aim a little higher? What I'm planning to do in my self-pro is, a small off-Broadway production in rep. It's a small play. It's 5 characters, 1 set. And I've already got a budget worked together. I worked for a number of decades in alternative investments in technology, so I know about limited partnerships, and I think I can probably find my way to people who are interested in theater and have resources to do it. So I need to learn, I just love the way you described it. I need to learn how to tell a good story about all the different aspects of it. So part of what I'm up against is, it seems like there's no harm in going to the trouble of self-producing this. I want to try and do it in January, maybe at a small theater somewhere in Midtown. And so that seems like, well, what could I lose to do that? But
about $600,000.
Well,
maybe not. It doesn't have to be that much.
The question.
Okay, well, I'm glad we're talking because the budget that I have is significantly smaller than that.
If
you're talking, there's different levels.
A lot of things go into a budget, and I guess if the question ultimately is, do you do it or not, that's your question. But if the question is which class is appropriate for you,
no. It's and that's why I was reticent to raise my hand, because I know the frame of the question was which class should I go in, and I think I know the answer to that question. So I thought maybe I would just send an email or reach out to one or both of you afterwards, to the degree that you're willing and interested to help me answer this question. Should I aim a little higher? than the scope of production that I'm looking for currently.
That's
looking at
going to
currently.
depend. They'll have a conversation with you, and they're going to find out what level of development you're at, because it depends on it depends on where you are in terms of your development. There are many steps that you can take before you get to an off-Broadway commercial production. An off-Broadway production is one thing. Sometimes people call an off-Broadway production an off-Broadway production. Off-Broadway production in my vocabulary usually means a commercial run. You would send something about running in repertory. So are you thinking about what they call, I think it's called split week. What is the equity term for it, where you share the theater with other people? The only place
I always called it piggybacking or piggybacking.
The only place that does it is the Actors Temple. That's the only place that does it anymore.
New World Stages.
There's a couple
does
more.
it. There's a couple.
The
Theater Center.
Playhouse 46 does it.
Which does?
Playwrights.
Playhouse 46.
Playhouse 46 does? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the old St. Luke's. Here's one way I can answer that question is you could tell either of us where you are and what you're doing, and we could say this is what you should be doing. But the real answer is if you took either of these classes, by the end of it, you'd be able to answer the question for yourself.
That's what I figured.
And
class will be done in January, so it might be too late, but that's
right. And Kip, you could ask Blair and me the same question and we can give you a different answer. So ultimately, I think the idea behind the classes and the community in the classes is to give you the tools so that you can better determine the process that's best for you. We really can't answer that. And, every question has 10 answers. And anyone in the class who's taken a class with me knows that I often start by saying it depends, because it depends. There's so many different variables, the timing, the cost, the show itself, the size, the scope, all these different things. And the only one who can determine the level of risk that you're willing to take is you. We can tell you that's
100%.
risky, that's not risky, but it's a great
I don't know if we can tell them
question.
that's not risky. It's all risky.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But we can tell you what sounds more risky.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Or what risk you're taking. Like you're taking a
Yeah.
risk with other people's money. That's like different than taking a risk with your own money. There's so many different things about it. But congratulations, by the way, for going 3 for 3 on the first 3 people you ask. We should talk about that conversation. Randall, you've been waving. You've been dying.
Well,
Yes, I've been waving.
Alicia
I
had her
just
hand
want
up
to add. I
before.
want to add in on the answer to Kip before you move on. If I just can quickly, take one of these classes. No matter how prepared you are or whatever, the number of things you're going to learn will boggle your mind. There's so much more than budget. You start talking to lawyers, you start talking to general managers, people you haven't even imagined that would come into your life. Not to mention the other classmates who are at various stages of their project. The answer is figure out one of them and take it. That's all. Thanks. Bye.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, no, you said ask 10 people, get 10 different answers. I just asking myself, I get 10 different answers a week, and it seems like
me too.
So I just figure it's par for the course. I don't want to bog this conversation down with the specifics of my situation. I appreciate you taking time on my behalf.
And it's also
Kip,
healthy that you're it's also healthy that you're in conversation with yourself. So keep asking.
Kip, I think the reason that we're continuing to have this conversation with you is that you're probably asking a question that everyone in the room has. And that's exactly the kinds of things that I think are actually the most helpful. Like there are a lot of things that are in a book, or, if you want to talk about what the elements of a contract are, it's like, just read the contract. But the question is not about what is the decision, but how you make decisions. And I think that's what, you get provided with a certain amount of information. You get to ask certain kinds of questions and see how other people address the questions. And you learn from that. You can say, oh my God, that is the worst reason for doing something. I'll never make that decision that way. I'll do it this way. The same. And the other thing I want to say along the same lines is, John Ewing, my favorite student, proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance is my motto. He's obviously learned it. totally distracted me. Sorry, completely lost my train of thought. It was something really important, but
Don't
it's gone
blame
now.
me. Don't blame me.
I am blaming
There
you,
was
John.
wait,
You distracted me.
there was a question in the chat that I just wanted to quickly answer if Eric Rothman is still here. We do discuss running in and marketing of a show once it's up, which is what all I'm doing right now. And also any of this, I always will start every conversation and every day that we are together saying, what are the things you want to know? And then I'll say, yes, this is in the presentation, or no, it's not, and we'll talk about it at the end. At this point, very little that I haven't tried. I've done immersive theater. I'm actually developing immersive things as we speak, touring, all of that. So there is always going to be time. And like Jane, I also offer opportunities to have one-on-one conversations.
Yeah.
I want to
And
find
I
out,
think also,
Alicia
wait,
had
hang
her
on.
hand up.
Okay, hold on a second, Bob. Just continuing that thought, and then Alicia, you can go next. But I said before, the class starts at 5:30, and we have general conversations, what people are doing, what's going on. That's also the opportunity, if we had a class and it didn't cover a subject, for you to raise questions and chat. And honestly, sometimes, other than the fact that a guest is coming in at a certain time, sometimes what I had on my agenda to talk about that day gets thrown out the window because something has come up or someone has a question that's more relevant. Because the thing about a seminar and having a small number of people is there are certain things, like Kip's question of what level should I go at? Like, am I aiming too low? Am I aiming too high? Whatever those things are things that are universal. And so that's whatever the class wants to talk about, that's really what we should be talking about. There's a foundational level. Like, once you get to master class, I assume that there's a certain foundational level that you've had, especially if you've gone through class with Blair. I know you've got that foundational level. And then we really need to talk about the things that are pressing for you. And it differs from class to class because the makeup of the class is different.
So Alicia,
you get to
did you want to still ask? Because you had your hand up for so long, and I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I took it down, but it was just very simple. Earlier I had put in the chat what the spring course dates were going to be. I wasn't sure if I saw it on the website or not.
The spring dates, you said?
For the master's class in the spring, what the dates or the typical time when that class takes place?
The typical time is late February to June-ish.
Yeah, it depends. I don't know, Alicia, so far away. I will say that I typically teach on Monday nights.
Right.
Blair typically teaches on Tuesday nights. But too far in the future. Don't know exactly when it'll start. And also a lot of it depends on, I know that I am planning to be in production in January, February, March. So if there may be certain dates that get changed, so I'm not setting them up quite yet.
But if I'm taking the foundations class, if I'm accepted into that course and I'm thinking that, yeah, I definitely want to go for it and apply for the master's, how soon would I even be able to do so? Like, would I have the dates for master's to submit my application before the end of foundations class, or how does that work?
Probably in January.
I'm probably before that. I mean, I try to get that out as soon as I have a sense, because I'm unlike foundations where there's not sort of a prerequisite. I like to know who my class is enough in advance. So so yes, I will be to you before class is finished. I also, as long as Blair will have me, I tend to come in and watch the final presentations of the foundations class, because that's like, people who are in foundations have kind of a leg up in getting into master class, because we know them, we know what they're, how serious they are. I get to see them in the presentation. So by that time, I should know. Because that's already, I mean, the classes end in January. I'm already taking applications by then. So,
okay.
So
Thank
yes,
you. Thanks.
Come on.
Okay.
See, that's the producer. You got a producer brain already. You're thinking ahead.
So Jane and Blair, were there any other people that you hadn't met yet? Denise, did you meet them yet? Did you meet Denise?
I don't think so. Oh, hi, Denise.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, I'm just here because I'm curious. I was an actor, I had said before my children got into middle school and all hell broke loose. And I was in Los Angeles, but now I'm in New York. I'm probably not an actor, but I love theater. And I'm wondering about being a producer.
Well,
Great.
We'd like to encourage that.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes.
The good thing about
it's
being
very-
a producer is that there isn't really a barrier to entry. You know, you can decide you want to be a producer, you learn about how to produce. You kind of have to have an ability to get people to part with their money. But you can also be working with producers and be part of the process that way. So it's not like, you know, being a plumber or something where like you actually have to have plumbing skills. You know, you have to have the ability to think and plan, and you know,
That
you
I can do.
Yeah.
That I can do.
The other thing I just want to say, and stating the obvious, but there's a lot of us writers out here, hundreds, thousands, I don't know how many of us there are, and there aren't that many producers, relatively speaking. So every one of you who decides to be a producer, you're giving some writers an opportunity they might not have had otherwise, because everybody has their own taste level, and just the things that you're going to be attracted to and wanted to bring on stage are going to be different than what Jane is interested in and what Blair is interested in. So every one of you, if you all became producers, I'd feel like True is really doing something really special for the theater community in general, having more people that are willing to do that work to get shows up and seen.
Or even just having the knowledge and spreading the knowledge to other writers.
Oh, some of you didn't hear Jane at the beginning, which I think the only person was Nancy. Nancy came in late, but I just want to repeat it. The more you know about theater and the more you know about the business of theater, the more attractive you are to producers and the easier it is for producers to work with you. I just want to repeat that because I just think that's so true. And it's something that most of us don't think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also the better experience you're going to have. I mean, I think there may be some of you out there who have had an experience getting produced who found themselves in a position that they weren't expecting, or something happened that it's like, wait a minute, that's not what I agreed to. And then someone will say, but look at the contract that you signed. Actually, you did agree to that. And part of the process of educating yourself as writers is educating yourself as writers about the producing process. And I remember what I wanted to say before. I think one of the things that we all fall prey to is thinking that there's something magically special about theater as a business. And the reality is that theater is a business. And so you really need to have a part of your brain that approaches this like you would approach any other business that you're in. And that means if you have a meeting with someone, you know, figure out who you're meeting with and what their needs and wants are, so that you can approach them and pitch them in the right way. If you're working in an office, making sure that you're working with protocol. You know, if you have a meeting, be on time, say thank you, right? You know, network and all of those things that we all do if we have other day jobs, or if we used to have day jobs. This is a business. And so it's incumbent upon us to learn all the aspects of the business. It's incumbent upon us as producers to understand, you know, what the writer's perspective is and what their needs are, and being able to negotiate in a way that makes the writers feel appreciated and wanted, and include them in the process. And it's easier to do that when they know more about what the process is. So that was what I forgot to say before.
Okay, so I didn't think that I was going to keep Blair and Jane this late. Are you guys okay about this?
No, it's almost midnight, but yes, I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm okay.
What I can do, we can call this officially over now, and people can go get dinner, or I can open up breakout rooms and you guys can meet each other and hang out with each other. Every Friday, I have this room open until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. People just hang out with each other, and I'm happy to do that. That's part of why I'm very much a community person. I very much like having a community and offering a space for a community. So, June, you have your hand raised. And you're muted.
You're on mute.
It's a bad combination.
I just want to say that I've been part of True since the beginning. And I just say it's so wonderful, so knowledgeable, and it's so important to get involved in these classes and to meet people in the business. And I truly love these meetings. They're terrific. So I wanted to thank everybody. So
Thank you, June. So there.
So there.
Well, I've been told off, haven't I?
Yeah.
I see Natalie has her hand raised.
Natalie?
Yeah, sorry about this, guys. This is like maybe not a perfectly applicable question to everyone, but during the fall class, I'm producing and staging a new work at Theater for the New City. It's the production period is starting in September, and it's running through mid-November. Kind of with that much, in my schedule for the fall, would you still recommend my attending a class in the fall, or would you say I should wait until my availability is very open? I think a lot of the information will be very applicable to my current situation, but I want to respect the time the professors are giving and my fellow classmates.
Oh, Blair, we're professors now. What is your role in staging this production?
I'm producing and directing this work. It is a playwright who lives in North Carolina, but in terms of funding and hiring personnel for the project in marketing, it's all on me.
Interesting. There's pluses and minuses immediately. You will have a place to go and get supported in what you're doing. It's true, and at the same time, are you available on the nights that the classes are given?
I should hope so. I mean, the rehearsal period's only 3-4 weeks, and the theater gives us the rehearsal spaces and dictates the days we can attend. So, unfortunately, that would be the issue. It would be only through October, I think, that I would be having some scheduling problems. I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place. I really do want to attend these sessions. I'm also willing to audit somehow. But these are also things I can correspond via email to see the best solution. So I don't have to take up everyone's time right now.
No, just out of curiosity, were you involved in the launch of the street theater this weekend?
No, I was the assistant director for the Halloween festival. The street festival was a different event, but very proud of them.
Yeah, good friends with TNA. I love TNC, Theater for New City. Everybody does this. Theater for New Audience, Theater for the New City.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's great. Like,
I record all the classes. I just wanted to say that. So if you can't attend a class, there are recordings available.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And I may be speaking out of turn, but I know that if you do start a class and are unable to attend, I'm sure for whatever reason, Bob will say, oh, you can come back and do the next time and catch up if you have to drop out because your schedule is not aligned at that time.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happens.
Yeah. I don't record the class, but I don't
I won't be starting the class till October 21st, I think, is my first class.
Okay, wonderful. And then this is the 10-person masterclass for.
Correct.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Yeah, that's so helpful. Thank you guys.
Blair, when are you starting?
I'm starting after the 14th is Columbus Day, or whatever it's called. I'm sorry, it's not called Columbus Day anymore, but I'm starting the week after that.
John is calling me out, even though he knows I don't know. I'm gonna go think about that tonight. But it will be late September. I need to rest. I'm tired.
Late September, okay.
Yeah.
You need a private plane, man.
Well, no, the carbon emissions. I don't want people tracking me on Twitter.
Blair, I just want to say that unless you do some consecutive weeks, I don't see how you won't go until January.
Yeah, fair.
Okay. So everybody, if you want to meet and hang out with each other, I don't know whether Jane and Blair, you want to be in individual rooms and take individual questions for people that are shy. We could
do that for about 15 minutes. If people
I can do
want.
it for about 5.
Yeah, if you want to talk
Or
to
I
me.
become delirious.
Yeah.
I'm definitely shy.
So Jane, I'll put you in 1 and I'll put Blair in 2. If I can find you in here. There you are.
I'll go join room 1.
Okay, and Blair, you want to join room 2? And anybody that wants to gossip about them behind their backs, there's room 3 and room 4. So if you want me to put you in a room, just let me know. If you want to hang out with friends, let me know. Room 3 is available, room 4 is available.